All right, I'm back today to talk about Sun's exaltation in the sign of Aries. Before we start, if you find this video and the content of this channel valuable to you, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. You can also visit my website at parisayazi.com. There you can find my reading services, general chart reading, and life narrative counseling. And my courses are also there. So in this next section, I want to talk about some of the key characteristics of people who have Sun in Aries and what the symbolic combination can denote. Okay, let us start with the obvious. Leadership is one of the most common interpretation of Sun in Aries. And the reason for this is Sun represents light, so there's clarity. The Sun represents decisiveness, so there's a sign of Aries. So they become authority figures to guide other people they are assertive, decisive, clear vision. They know how to express themselves in a way that is understood. And in a lot of ways, they're able to provide stability and reliability for other people. And they can do the acts themselves that they are demanding of other people because they have that vitality and energy to do it. And they have the consciousness to know the significance of that. So you don't get a bully out of here. You don't get a dictator. What one commands, one is also able to do it. And when necessary, they will do it. They will lead by example. And for this reason, the Sun comes to represent leaders in general, bosses, kings, people who are in governing positions, and the father, because historically, or anyone of the father archetype, because the father was considered the patriarch or the head of the family, guiding the family. So in today's world, we can say whoever that possesses that position as the archetype, as a father archetype. Another thing to remember about this combination, we can talk about people who have pioneering spirit, because Aries has that adventurous thing to it. It has bravery in it. It's not afraid to try new things. And there's enough energy and vitality with this combination to take a path that no one has taken before. And they have that initiation to be able to lead the way. And that light and that the illumination just light up the path for themselves and for other people to move through it in life. And in a lot of ways, Sun and Aries people can be seen as trailblazers. They don't follow others, but they create a path where others can follow them, which again brings us to that leadership concept. And the sign of Aries, when it's dysfunctional, is denoting being individualistic in a negative way, where it comes self-orientation starts to turn to selfishness. But when you have the Sun, which is exalted here, we can't interpret it that way. We have that strong sense of self as the individual self, but there's that feeling is just about having autonomy, being self-possessed and self-governed. That's how it's coming through. I'm self-reliant, but in a positive and a healthy way. So there's a kind of a self-determination in the sign. You're not going to get codependency, unhealthy dependency. They just know how to be assertive. There's a healthy sense of identity here in terms of who I think I am and what I think I'm capable of doing. And in a sense, that's the highest expression of individuality without taking it to very wacky places where it's not a nice definition. And another thing about this is that if you know a Sun and Aries person, you can't control them, like putting external control on them. That's not how it works, because they have this inner feeling of, I am self-possessed and I'm being upright. So they feel that if it's in violation to who they are, it's just not going to work with Sun and Aries people. And then Sun and Aries people can also become visionary. They have exceptional focus in a lot of ways because of that illuminating factor of the Sun and the action orientation of Aries. It can align their action to a purpose and a sense of direction in life. So they have a clear vision of their goals. And because of the energy constantly being pumped into the Sun, there's great determination to pursue their goals too. So in that sense, there's vision and focus. We can also see this as someone who has a lot of stamina in terms of energy. There's a surplus of energy here. So you can see like this deep-seated drive and passion for life and what it is that they do in life. They can also become a great source of inspiration, a beacon of light for other people, and to help to direct other people in their life, which again is taking us back to that leadership quality of the Sun. And the beauty of this is because this is an exalted sun, we get a lot of personal and moral integrity in this, and again, going back to that individualistic, this is why we can't give the sun in Aries that individualistic meaning, which is negative, because they are acting with personal integrity, that dharma aspect that I was talking about earlier. So now let's quickly jump into some of the hardships that can come with this placement. As I was saying, a lot of times, a lot of us want exalted planets, not realizing that an exalted planet is talking about certain kind of expectations. There's a learning curve in this life till we reach a point where we can flawlessly express that expression, which is the expression of that exalted planet. So some of the things and challenges that might come up throughout a lifetime for a Sun in Aries person before they get a sense of self-mastery is related to that over-identification with the who of who I think I am and not the what of me. That what part really takes time in this life. It takes a lot of trials and errors. Sometimes we have to do many wrong things before we figure out what the right thing is. And because we are human, Sun in Aries is not exempt from that. And having a kind of a over-identification with the who of who I think I am can really marginalize other people. I talked about this with the Sun-Saturn combination. This can become the tendency of the sun when the sun is not mature yet in our chart. So Sun in Aries people, before that maturity comes, they can dismiss other people's expressions and what it is that they need. They feel themselves to be the center. And there's a sense of power in how they feel. So if we don't know how to use our power properly, we hurt the world that's around us. And this is something that we live and learn throughout a lifetime. Another thing I have seen myself in analyzing charts, and I have a number of Sun and Aries people around me, receiving feedback is very, very difficult for them because they have a sense of clarity in their own minds and a sense of vision for what they want to do. So receiving any kind of a critical feedback from the external world that is not in alignment to this vision, they see this as a challenge to their authority and competency, which can have repercussion in terms of how they respond back. So this is something that they need to work on. I mean, not everyone's criticism is legit, nor should we listen to everyone's criticism, even when it's constructive criticism, depends who it comes from. But to always have a lashback against this doesn't work out well. But the beauty of having Sun that's exalted, it's also saying the person has the potentiality to learn such things as life lessons throughout a lifetime. Whereas Sun that's struggling, this is a lifetime struggle. It's just hard to grasp what to do with that. Another common theme with Sun in Aries is overemphasis on individual success. The importance of I'm going to do it myself. I do it better than anyone else. I might as well do it myself because I can probably do a way better job, is undermining the collaborative facet of life, like having shared victories. But then again, the Sun is exalted, so the potential to learn is there. There can also be a reluctance to share authority because you are born a leader, you're a born leader, and rightfully so. But sometimes that delegation and that sharing of that position is just essential to life because that's the circumstance that we're in. And I was saying, when we know what we're made of, our personal integrity never gets compromised because we know what we are within ourselves. So compromising with others, it does not mean compromising the self. And this is really about maturing up in life and understanding this. Another thing I have seen time and time again, Sun in Aries people can have control issues. And we got to remember, sometimes when these more negative significations are coming, because I was saying we can't give a negative slant to the symbolism of the Sun in Aries where it's exalted, we can have certain aspects and certain configuration of the chart that is doing this. But often I've also seen that this is coming, these issues are coming from lack of experience in life because we are human, we are partial, we are imperfect, and to our dying breath, we're learning and we're in the process of mastery. There's never an end to it. But when we're young and we don't yet know how to negotiate with different facets of life, these parts can come out, and control issues one of them. So Sun in Aries, because of that inherent autonomy that's in it, that is self-possessed and self-governed. It becomes the golden stick of how others ought to be around it. It knows better. It knows right. Like, again, it's feeling like itself is being compromised if it relinquished control to let others be how they need to be in their skin. And because if they are that way, then they have to modify themselves. If, again, it can feel like I'm compromising my personal integrity. So that control issue can come into play. Now, there's this insane drive when we take these symbolism and we put them together. I was saying like fire is fueling fire, so you just get more fire. We're talking about passion. We're talking about energy. And honestly, if we feel energetic, but we can't direct it, we start to feel anxiety. So Sun in Aries people, Mars in Aries people too, they always need to be in some sort of an act. And then Sun in Aries people have a sense of direction and a purpose. So that career aspect of the Sun can come into play, and you can see someone who's very career oriented. So their personal ambitions are huge. But we know life can become lump-sided and one-sided. And next thing you know, you're burning all the significations that have to do with relationships and the relational dynamics that we have in life. So having that personal life and work-life balance is something that Sun and Aries people have to work on. And then another thing is difficulty in expressing vulnerability because of that masculine principle that's inceptive. And then being self-governed, and then having a sense of purpose. And I gotta do it. Sign of Aries is so action-oriented, more than any other sign. So showing any emotional vulnerability that you don't know how to do something, you might not be as strong as you think you should be. You're not as brave and as courageous as you think that you should be. When you are that kind of a person, you can never ask for assistance or help because you can't make yourself emotionally available to other people. You can't admit that you're wrong. So if we can't be emotionally vulnerable, we can't really establish close relationship. And this brings me to the last point of one of the struggles for Sun and Aries people. As much as they're born to be leaders, you find lone wolves a lot of times in reading a lot of charts. They feel isolated and alone. Like, I have no help. I have no support. And you know what? Honestly, I don't really want it because I feel like my sense of self is being violated. You find a lot of bachelors and bachelorettes when you have Sun in Aries. There's a sense of isolation and not belonging and not being able to connect. And they can come off as being very self-reliant. You know, in psychology, it's like, or there's a psychological components to relationships. Two people actually become very close when one person has to emotionally invest in another person because the other person's coming short in life. You know, they might not feel like they have enough strength to deal with something, and then the other person intervenes. And by the fact of doing that, they just created a closer bond. But when you are very self-reliant and you feel like you're giving up on being self-possessed and self-governed, it becomes hard to establish connections with a lot of people. Marriage becomes difficult. Relationships become difficult. And these become some of the growing pains for this combination. And I feel that when they learn how to do this and understand again that they are not compromising themselves, their career, their vision, their ambitions, their passions, that is just part of life, then bringing that Maximus, I'm just going to go with that one. You bring that quality, and when you look at that character sketch, he was right in every facet of the roles that he had and the circumstances that he was put through. And there was this stable inner self. It didn't matter if he was a slave or he was the king's right man, or he was even the one with the potential to ascend to being a king, as a husband, as a father, whatever situation that you put him in, he compromised with every situation. But his inner compass, that inner self, the what of what he was unshook through the whole movie. That's why it's kind of mythical, and it is inspiring, and it's memorable because that's what all of us human beings are aspiring to be. Whether if we are wealthy and the king of the world, or whether if we are in absolute poverty and life is impoverished, our sense of self is still. It's the center. It is unshook because we know what we're made of. So this is a challenge for a human being who has Sun in Aries. This is for any human being, but Sun in Aries is supposed to get mastery over this. So it becomes a greater or a more explicit and illuminated life struggle for them. So I would like to end Sun in Aries for this year here. I'm really hoping that every year I get that fire and fuel to come back for all the planets starting at the beginning of the year, going through all the signs to redo them and to bring different elements. This is literally like scratching the surface of Sun and Aries. And then for the longer moving planets like Jupiter and Saturn and the outer planets, I'll come back and I'll make some time to do those planets through all the signs too. But that concludes Sun in Aries, and we'll be back next month to talk about Sun in Taurus. That's it for now. Much love. Till next time.